Why was Sam Altman ousted from OpenAI? Now that's the question we're going to have a quick look at in this video. Sam Altman has been ousted from OpenAI. If you have any interest in tech and have had internet access for the last 24 hours, you would have struggled to miss this news. Now this was really shocking news that was announced yesterday. It pretty much took everybody by surprise. Now let's have a quick look at the announcement. So this is a blog post from 17th of November 2023 from the OpenAI blog. And you can see here that the CTO Mira Murati has been appointed the interim CEO to lead OpenAI, and Sam Altman departs the company. Now it talks a bit here about Mira and her credentials. We're not really interested in that at the moment. It mentions here that Mr. Altman's departure follows a deliberative review process by the board, which concluded that he was not consistently candid in his communications with the board, hindering its ability to exercise its responsibilities. The board no longer has confidence in his ability to continue leading OpenAI. And further down, it mentions that as part of this transition, Greg Brockman will be stepping down as chairman of the board and will remain in his role at the company. Now, this part is already out of date. Greg Brockman has quit as of today. Now, I think before we can dig deeper, we need to be clear about the key actors in this saga so we can be on the same page. So first up is Sam Altman, the person who's been let go. Now, I don't want to tell his life story, but essentially he is a Stanford dropout, very fashionable. He went on to have some tech startup business success, and after exiting, dabbled with a few roles, but ended up at Y Combinator, the startup accelerator. Now, that's where he ended up on my radar, as he would put out super useful information and interviews around being a successful startup and what that involved. And in the latter stages of that, I remember him saying multiple times that it seemed like the most important thing to focus on was AI. So eventually he switched focus completely towards AI. So then in 2015, a non-profit company called OpenAI Inc. was set up, and the for-profit bit, which came later, was called OpenAI Global LLC. So fast forward to 2015, you had the founding of a non-profit called OpenAI Inc. And you can see here that OpenAI researches artificial intelligence with the declared intention of developing safe and beneficial systems, artificial general intelligence, which it defines as highly autonomous systems that outperform humans at most economically valuable work. Now, in 2019, they had this kind of confusing transition from a non-profit to a for-profit, or you could say a non-profit which controls a for-profit division. The idea was broadly that they required so much investment to achieve their objectives that it really had to be a for-profit model that could provide that level of investment and that level of compute. And a lot of that investment came from Microsoft. As you can see here, it planned to spend $1 billion within 5 years and possibly much faster. It mentions here that Altman has stated that even $1 billion may turn out to be insufficient. So who are the key players involved in all this? Well, some of the founding members of OpenAI include, but are not limited to, Ilya Sutskever, Greg Brockman, Sam Altman, and Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk is no longer part of OpenAI. There's a sort of complicated history there where he tried to take control of OpenAI. It didn't quite work out. He left. He now has his own product, a ChatGPT competitor called Grok, which I highly recommend checking out. So then we have Sam Altman, who we've already introduced. Now, Greg Brockman, let's have a quick look at him. Now, Greg Brockman was the president of OpenAI. He has stepped down, but we'll talk about that in a second. So he's a key player. The other key player, and perhaps most important key player, is Ilya Sutskever. Now, as well as being one of the co-founders, he is also the chief scientist of OpenAI and a really critical part of this story. So what actually happened? Well, on Friday, yesterday, the 17th of November, Sam was fired or let go, whatever you want to call it. So firstly, Sam Altman tweeted, "I loved my time at OpenAI. It was transformative for me personally, and hopefully the world a little bit. Most of all, I loved working with such talented people." We'll have to say more about what's next later. Now, shortly afterwards, Sam tweeted, "I love you all," which many people have pointed out also stands for Ilya, the other key player in this saga. He goes on to say, "Today was a weird experience in many ways, but one unexpected one is that it has been sort of like reading your own eulogy while you're still alive. The outpouring of love is awesome. One takeaway, go tell your friends how great you think they are." And there's one final tweet from Sam where he says, "If I start going off, the OpenAI board should go after me for the full value of my shares. I think that's meant to be a joke. Let me know what you think in the comments." Now, after all this, on Saturday, 18th of November, Greg Brockman goes ahead and resigns. Now, remember, Greg is the president of OpenAI. He's the head of the board of OpenAI, and he also quit. So let's take a quick look at his statement. So he says here, "After learning today's news, this is the message I sent to the OpenAI team. Hi all, I'm super proud of what we've all built together since starting in my apartment 8 years ago. We've been through tough and great times together, accomplishing so much despite all the reasons it should have been impossible. But based on today's news, I quit. Genuinely wishing you all nothing but the best. I continue to believe in the mission of creating a safe AGI, artificial general intelligence, that benefits all of humanity." A little later, he goes on to say, "Sam and I are shocked and saddened by what the board did today. Let us first say say thank you to all the incredible people who we have worked with at OpenAI, our customers, our investors, and all of those who have been reaching out. A little later, he then goes on to tweet in a bit more detail. And this is really one of the most interesting and telling tweets of all of this. He says, Sam and I are shocked and saddened by what the board did today. Let us first say thank you to all the incredible people who we have worked with at OpenAI, our customers, our investors, and all of those who have been reaching out. We too are still trying to find out exactly what happened. Here is what we know. Last night, Sam got a text from Ilya. Remember, Ilya is the chief scientist of OpenAI, asking to talk at noon on Friday. Sam joined a Google Meet, and the whole board except Greg being the person who's making this tweet, was there. Ilya told Sam he was being fired and that the news was going out very soon. At 12:19 p.m. lunchtime, Greg got a text from Ilya asking for a quick call. At 12:23 p.m., Ilya sent a Google Meet link. Greg was told that he was being removed from the board, but was vital to the company and would retain his role. And Sam had been fired. Around the same time, OpenAI published a blog post, which we've already looked at. As far as we know, the management team was made aware of this shortly after, other than Mira, who found out the night prior. The outpouring of support has been really nice. Thank you, but please don't spend any time being concerned. We will be fine. Greater things coming soon. So there's quite a lot to unpack there. Now, he talks about it being a surprise, so you can imagine that there may have been some tension in the company, but not enough for them to think that there'd actually be something as significant as this. Meanwhile, Ilya may have been talking to other people in the background and making various moves, sort of colluding with the board and whatnot. Again, this is all just me hypothesizing. I don't have any evidence to suggest any of this stuff. So there's actually quite a lot to unpack in this tweet. First of all, the fact that they felt this was a surprise. So I suspect that there was some tension. There's probably been some tension going on for quite some time, and maybe that spilled over with the dev day and various other things that have been happening recently, but not enough for them to think that something as grand as this might happen. In the background, Ilya may have been talking to the board and discussing with other people, and maybe had been working on this coup or this idea for some time. Who knows? The other key thing to note here is that in both of these cases, it was Ilya reaching out, so he seems to be a very critical person in all of these discussions, and it seems to be that there may have been two sides, the Ilya side and the board, and Sam and Greg. And the other interesting thing is that he mentions greater things coming soon, so who knows, they may be already working on something and have had some ideas about what they would do if they would leave, but it's not really difficult to imagine what they would go on to do next. Now, in terms of what happened, what actually caused this, there's a huge rumor mill, as well as lots of jokes about one of the first jobs that AI took was actually Sam Altman's job and all this other kind of stuff. There is some actual theories about what might have happened, but you've got to take them with a huge pinch of salt because at the moment the situation is very unclear. There's been mention of a data breach for which I've seen absolutely no evidence. There's talk of a tug of war between the profit side and the non-profit side. Obviously the board and Ilya being on one side, and it looks likely that Sam and Greg would have been on the other side, pushing to go much faster and maybe a slightly riskier approach. Now, the other thing that's been talked about a lot is Ilya Sutskever leading a coup against Sam due to various tensions, including around the speed of development, and maybe things came to a head soon after the dev day, which was held not long ago. Now, one of the strange things about OpenAI is the corporate structure. So at the very top, you have, this is taken from their website, by the way, at the very top, you have the board of directors, you have a set of controls, you have OpenAI Inc., public charity, OpenAI non-profit, that wholly owns and controls OpenAI GP LLC, which is the for-profit part. This controls the holding company for OpenAI non-profit employees and investors. Employees and other investors own this part of the organization, and this is a majority of owner of OpenAI Global LLC, a capped profit company. That means that investors can make a very substantial profit, but it is capped, and you have Microsoft as a minority owner of this section. So this to me looks convoluted and complicated and not a structure that I've ever heard of existing before. Let me know in the comments below if you know of other organizations that run a similar model to this. I've never seen it before. And in fact, I wanted to make a video about the corporate structure of OpenAI because it looks so weird to me some time back, but I never got around to it. All right, so what happens next? Well, for now, Mira Murati is the new CEO. She joined OpenAI in 2018 as CTO and oversaw key projects at the company. Of course, she took over as CEO, so it'll be interesting to see what becomes of OpenAI now. Many people are talking about the fact that people that were looking to go faster are going to jump ship and join Sam Altman in whatever he does next, and they'll go a lot faster, and OpenAI may take a more cautionary, slower approach and therefore may become a little bit less relevant going forward. Now, in terms of what Sam Altman will do next, well, depending on the nature of the departure, some legal action could well be a possibility, but there are other people saying that he will have a company up and ready and set up looking for funding by Monday. So whatever he does, he has become somewhat the face of AI of late. He won't have any trouble raising funds. Given his vantage point, I'll be very interested to see what he does next. Let me know in the comments below if you have any ideas or thoughts on this. Now, we have some breaking news just in that the OpenAI board, as you can see from these headlines, the OpenAI board is in discussions with Sam Altman to return as CEO. Now, there could be multiple reasons for this, but Sam Altman inspires a lot of loyalty. And obviously, there's been a string of resignations, including some very significant ones from OpenAI, which could potentially decimate and harm OpenAI's plans to continue what it's doing. And there's been a lot of money and investment poured in. So there could be pressure from Microsoft. There could be other pressure on OpenAI to generate a return on some of that investment. So there could be some real pressure there. That could be the reason for these discussions. It could be that Sam leaving along with a string of colleagues could set up a rival business, and with all the knowledge and know-how that they have, could pose a real risk to OpenAI. So that might be the reason. This is a breaking, developing story, and I'm sure the plot will thicken. By the way, I'm Saeed, the Codogrammer, and if you want to be kept up to date with the latest tech news and tutorials, make sure you hit subscribe. Thank you for watching.